better be informed.
Yes, sir. The American agent has infiltrated the X-Lab facility.
Welcome back. I hope everything works because I just had to reset every piece of audio that I have here. It's the Combat Footage Show. I'm Ronnie, your host. It's good to see you. Like button, comment. Here we go. I ought to like smash two of them together at the beginning of the stream, you know? What's up? All right, you know what to do. Come on. Evening. Drop a comment in the chat. Let me know where you're chiming in from. It's always cool to see where everybody is in the Funker 530 community. Thank you. Where you at? New Orleans. Montreal, what's going on? I was just bumping the mic up a little bit. Georgia. Dallas. Hey guys, wow. Holy. There it is. South Africa. What's up? Kansas, Ohio, Florida on station. Jiggly Cali. Why is it Jiggly? Anyway. Australia. Idaho. What's going on, guys? It's good to see you. Welcome back to the Combat Footage live review, where the footage doesn't matter and all that matters is the more times you say bias. Just kidding. So you're probably wondering at this point where I was for the last couple weeks. Well, when the Army tells me I've got to go somewhere, I do still wear the uniform in a weekend warrior status. I'm laughing at myself while I say that. I've got to go. So that's where I was the last couple weeks. Nobody yelled at me for my mustache. Hope you guys like it. I left it on. But tonight, the show returns. There's going to be a couple things that we're going to talk about before, the normal part of the show goes, because there's a couple really cool updates from the Funker 530 crew that I really want to talk about. I've talked about them before, but before I get there, let's talk for a little bit about our sponsor. Our sponsor, you're going to see their logo in the bottom left corner of your screen. Bottom left corner of your screen, it's RMA Armament. If you guys are looking for body armor, say you've just got yourself a plate carrier. I've got mine right here next to me, and now you're in the process of searching for body armor. RMA might be where you want to look. All of their armor is 100% made in America. They've got something like a 33,000 square footage warehouse, right here in the States. One of their armor specifically that they wanted me to talk about is the Level 4 Model 1165. It's the lightest armor in its class. For the price range too. So each plate is going to cost you about $250, but it's level 4 armor. That means it's going to stop threats all the way up to and including M2AP, so 30-06 armor piercing. It's also multi-hit capable. Now, I've shot quite a bit of armor on one of my personal YouTubes, and I got to tell you, some of this armor that's coming out from a price range perspective is really good. I haven't personally tested that level 4 plate, but if you want to take a look at it, there's a link in the stream description. For those ladies out there, or for yourself, if you are a lady, I don't know, maybe you have the curvature of a lady, I'm not judging. They also have female cut armor. Now, what the hell does that mean? Well, it's more curvy. That's more or less it. So do me a favor, if you guys are interested in picking up a set of body armor, use the links that I put for you in both the chat, right up at the top, there's a pinned comment, as well as in the stream description. Thanks very much to RMA Armament. Now, let's talk about the big change. So over the years of Funker 530, we have been around in some iteration since 2007, right? 2008, 2007 or 2008. It changes every time I ask the man. Multiple iterations of changes have taken place. We went from just a YouTube channel, run by a guy that wanted to share his combat footage with his family, that it ultimately morphed into what we see here today, where we're bringing in guests from fights all around the globe to help share the reality. We're looking at footage almost as close as you can really get to real time. We are an international community of those that want to cut through the BS. I almost said a bad word, and I think the boss is watching right now. Boss. that want to cut through the BS of the 5-second clips that CNN and Fox News want to share with you. Heads up, my cat just jumped up here, and she's why the stream was late, so please expect her to probably show her butt off to the camera. I don't know why she does that. Yeah, I'm talking about you. But it's probably going to derail the stream multiple times tonight. Anyway, the newest or biggest change to Funker 530 has now officially taken place. That new website that I've been talking about is now live. So funker530.com version 2.0 is now live. Now, there has been an overwhelming amount of feedback, both positive and negative. One of the problems that we ran into is some folks out there are still running relatively older, Android or even iPhones. We planned for some of those newer versions and intended to roll out updates continuously to make sure we're accounting for everybody's devices. We're a small team. We're 6 people total, plus a dev crew that I want to say they're like 3 or 4 dudes. So if you initially pulled down the Funker 530 2.0 app and we're having some problems, check the App Store. Whatever app store it is that you subscribe to, whether it's Android or iOS, there's an update in there for you. It's meant to be infinitely faster. I want to say Funker was telling me it's something like 10 times as fast. He runs a lot of the development behind the scenes. That's where he is these days. For those that recall, Funker himself used to stream quite a bit. Twitch, Facebook gaming. So he spends a lot of his time on the back end actively working on trying to improve the archive. That's what we're molding ourselves into here. For a long time, it was really just the place where you'd go to watch combat footage. But for us, the way we look at it is very much a historical archive of war, of use of force. And I think that's something so critical for people to understand about what we do. We're not here to sell you anything, from a mission perspective. We are here to ultimately, again, cut through the middle of what, an agenda is going to tell you is happening. Whether you read the analysis or not, I always do recommend it, you will get raw footage from us. And we will continuously be archiving the footage that's going on today for 10 years into the future. So if you're seeing, how come you didn't post this one or post that one? It's because we haven't had a chance to get to it yet. Our intent is to archive all of it. But again, we're a small team. We need to continue to scale. So that is a major step forward for us. You're going to see the UI is just a lot more clean. It's a lot more professional looking, more representative of, again, what we want to be, which is 30 years from now, we want to be the place that you'll go to say, hey, what does it look like when a T-Series tank turns into a low orbit entry vehicle? Now you know where you can go. Anyway, that's what I really wanted to talk about to kick right out of the gate. I'm looking at her right in the face. She's going to jump over here and she's going to rub her face all over all these monitors. And it's going to make me real angry. You remember that streamer chick that threw her cat over her shoulder? I'm starting to understand why she did that. It took me 15 minutes to set all this stuff up just because she knocked over like this monitor and that monitor. I'm just waiting for it. I'm going to drop into the chat for a minute and say hello to everybody. First of all, Doug, thank you for the 23 months GI Docs US footage. Thanks very much for joining us. Charlie92, what's going on? Show of dominance. The cat's showing dominance. Let's talk about what we're going to cover tonight. So, while I was gone, of course, stuff like this happens when I'm gone. Ukraine invaded Russia. Now, Ukraine's been conducting incursions into Russia now for quite a while. Under most circumstances, I would probably categorize those as raids, kind of harassment techniques where they would enter, hoping to stir the pot a little bit, pull back out. Ultimately, the goal for that would primarily be to force Russia to keep some combat power there so it's not in Ukraine. Initially, a lot of people expected this latest incursion into Kursk to be something similar. I actually believe at this point, and we can most agree, that it's not. We're actually seeing a combined arms offensive here and what is turning into a combined arms campaign. Now, that means that there's air being used. There are breaching vehicles being used. There are tanks supported by infantry and infantry fighting vehicles. There is chaos, and I'm going to show you that chaos tonight. We're going to start with Ukraine tonight, and then we'll be closing things out, subject to time, with some footage, first around the world and then with Israel. So let's get started on the footage that I have for the evening. The very first thing, I've got some airstrikes here. Now, the air campaign is going to be something that when we say combined arms is typically going to be a requirement. So the U.S. doctrine is primarily built around establishing air superiority. While I wouldn't say that anybody has necessarily air superiority, both Ukraine and Russia continue to be able to use air platforms to deliver munitions. Here is an airstrike in Kursk from Ukraine. Reminder, with a lot of Ukraine footage, I've got to keep the sound off. Tachanka, thank you very much for the €7. I think that's the Euro button, or the Euro symbol. Psst, 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 psst. She's looking right at me, dude. I'm telling you, she's coming. And I do have the map up, and I should have shown that to you. Let's pull up where that location was on the map. And we'll also take a look at, a little bit of a top-down view of, I would say, the forward line of troops in Kursk. So those strikes took place here, kind of in that gray area between known control areas. And again, we can talk about this until we're blue in the face. This doesn't necessarily mean that there's a wall of dudes here or that there aren't Russians, entering certain areas of here, conducting harassment attacks of their own. And it also doesn't necessarily mean that Ukrainians aren't, conducting harassment raids beyond it. But those airstrikes took place about here. Now, if I'm not mistaken, UA control map has this listed at 1,068.82 kilometers. And I want to talk about that for a second. That's on the upper end of what I've seen. So I've been trying to keep as much track as possible while I was away with the Army on. And I don't cover any of this stuff or work on any of this stuff in the Army. So something to keep in mind is the things that I relay here are all based entirely on open sources, and they're all my opinions, not necessarily reflective of, not even Funker 530. I'm just one guy. I don't speak for all of them. But they're also not reflective of opinions of the Department of Defense. I've never really said that before. I felt like it didn't need to be said. But as we go further and further down, kind of opinion-oriented things and a little bit of analysis, it's important to note that I don't do any of this work anymore for the military. This is on the higher end of the total ground held by Ukraine that I've seen. I've seen everything from about 800 square kilometers all the way up to 1,000 square kilometers, and this is on the upper end of that. Regardless, that's not an insignificant amount of land to be held by Ukraine. Ultimately, and Zelensky has kind of let the cat out of the bag on what exactly they're doing here. They're taking this ground to hold it. They've called it an exchange fund. Now, they're taking prisoners. Russia is also taking Ukrainian prisoners, but they're also taking ground to trade back. They're doing their best to come to the negotiating table with at least some level of a stacked deck. I would say that the deck is still generally stacked in Russia's favor relative to the amount of Ukrainian land that Russia holds. But again, 1,000 square kilometers is not an insignificant amount of land. Some more footage here. We're going to be headed to this spot where we'll see a Russian FPV strike on this house, which is reported to be occupied by Ukrainians. We'll start burning through a lot of this footage now. I'm on my last Pink Mist energy drink, and I'm going to need the boss to order me another 48 of them. I will note that there's nobody in there. I don't know if they're in another room or something, but all right, bringing it up. There's a lot of footage that we're going to get through here. So those strikes took place on or around the 22nd. Now we're going to jump around the map a little bit. The way I structured this out isn't necessarily based on certain locations, but on date-time groups. Date-time groups of publishing. Now there's always going to be two types of date-time groups. You'll have the published date and then the date that the event happened. We won't always know exactly what date it happened, but we can generally get an on or around time frame. So those last two videos we watched were those that I picked out of a massive amount of footage of FPV strikes and artillery strikes that we were watching from like an Orlan drone 5 clicks away that you can't really tell. So those were the 2 that I picked for the 22nd of August. I've got some other footage for that a little bit later on in specific sections, but we're going to take a look at some Russian airstrikes coming up here. These take place here. Now, it's always important to note that unless Russia or Ukraine are really just burning through capabilities, that when they're striking a location, that generally is going to mean that there is an opposing belligerent in those positions. So as we look at this, we see these airstrikes that took place on or around the 21st of August, all the way up here towards this tip of the Ukrainian-held territory. Here are those strikes. And just so you guys know, if you can't see right there, the Funker is in the chat right now, kind of working through any challenges that you guys are having with the app. He's one guy. He's not going to be able to catch them all, but you know, if you are running into some issues, try and provide things like the device type. You know, maybe what operating system the device is running, right? So if it's an iPhone, what version of iPhone, or what what version of iOS are you running on it, etc. Oh, I'll catch them all? Okay, Ash, if you say so. Why is there no Canadian flag for Funker? Well, ironically, Funker is the only Canadian. He is only one of us, and we outnumber him. So, oh, we're not watching it again. So he has to deal with the American flag for as long as I host this show. Is what it is. Let's move on. Now, that being said, our very first podcast guest was a Canadian, and I've spent 2 trips in the last 45 days in Canada, which, by the way, the first time I went to Canada, I brought my gun. The second time, I drove a tank, or I commanded a tank, technically. So I believe at this rate, I'm probably on track to be Canada's next prime minister. Just saying. For my first action as prime minister, I'm going to cede Alberta to the United States and then step down as prime minister. Let's move on. This is a Ukrainian vehicle hit by something. Now, the reason that I chose this one was largely because of the resolution of the video. It's all too often that, some of the footage that we get is such a low resolution, all 4 pixels in it, and we're trying to discern what's happening. With this one, it's some pretty clear footage with a solid geolocation that shows something that took place. Here you are. Now, I don't really know what this vehicle was hit with, but here's the footage. I don't even know what kind of vehicle that is. See the crew jumping out there, though, in the back? All right, Courtney, I see you. Blame Canada. But do we really need Alberta? My brother, you have never been to Alberta, have you? Just wait until we release the footage of that. The final touches on the edits are being done now. Wait until we release that video. That's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. Like, honestly, I haven't been many places other than the United States, but Alberta, that's like fresh out of a photography book. Amazing place. All right. Moving on. More Ukrainian airstrikes here. If you haven't noticed, I picked a lot of air tonight. The original thumbnail for tonight was actually going to be this dope picture of, I want to say it was like a Ukrainian MiG firing two AGM-88 harms out of it. It's just a real sweet photo, but it was essentially supposed to signify the amount of air that's flying right now. There's a running theme that Ukraine doesn't have air. Well, they just received an additional 10 F-16s. We've talked about that before. You know, no one weapon platform is going to ultimately be the silver bullet. It's just the increase of capability in getting Ukraine closer to a general parity with their adversary. But Ukraine is still absolutely flying. This is going to be evidence of that. These strikes take place here. These are Ukrainian airstrikes on Glushkovo. Now we're going to see some footage of this bridge being taken out, another bridge being taken out over here, and another bridge being taken out over here. Some pontoon bridges being destroyed. Again, this is a little bit more than a raid. Ukraine is taking this ground in an attempt to hold it, right? Exactly how that pans out over the course of time, it's left to be said. But they are taking the actions to set conditions for holding that, keeping Russia from being able to maneuver, or at least hindering the maneuver of reinforcements into the area. Now, with this area specifically, though, if they are keeping Russia from being able to cross this river, which is the same river, Seym, then there's an argument to be made that they're attempting to set conditions to potentially take this area. Now, that's just me kind of, you know, throwing a dart at a dartboard, so I wouldn't write that down as some kind of a quote. I mean, you're welcome to, whatever, it's fine. But that's how I would read this. Again, we're going to see multiple bridges taken out along this river, multiple pontoon bridges as well. But first, these airstrikes. They're coming up for you now. Oop, missed the first strike. Maybe do better, Ron. There's a comment in the chat I wanted to kind of focus on here. The fact that Ukrainian Air Force is striking into Russia almost 3 years after Russian invasion is mind-blowing. You can't discount that, right? If regardless of kind of where your support structure lies, where your bias is, because bias is, again, impossible not to have. Looking at data objectively is, I think, what most people are going for when they ask for unbiased takes. But if you look at that objectively, you cannot discount that. Not at all, right? You can take it all the way down the propaganda narrative as far as you'd like. Second best army in the world, et cetera, et cetera. Regardless, you can't discount that Ukrainian air is able to strike into Russia and that Ukraine is now holding 1,000 square kilometers of ground in Russia. Let's move on. All right, all of these last few took place on or around the 21st of August. These next strikes here, also on or around, don't know when, the 21st of August. Now, if this is the one I think it is, I don't think we're there yet. I want you to remember this location. We're going to spend some time on this here in a little bit. Unless this is the video that I think it is. I don't think it is. I want you to remember this location, and I want you to remember the word chaos. There's a reason I put that in the stream description. Let's take a look and see if this is the one. That's the wrong thing that I just put in my... Nope. Gotta actually copy the link. Sugar, you stay over there. Don't come over here. Oh, here she goes. Okay, so this isn't the video, but you're going to see this twice tonight. Just a longer version in a little bit. Here you are. So these Ukrainians, discretion advised on this one. Just heads up for that. War happens in this video. These are Ukrainians being shelled by Russia. Psst, psst, psst. No. No. Sorry. Sugar. She's rubbing her face on the far monitor and you just can't see her. She's right there. Remember that location, though. Okay, it's going to come back up. Malaya Loknia. Got some martyr footage here. 2 back-to-back videos. This is on really one of the further edges in Kursk. Here. So we're going to see some footage of a Ukrainian-operated martyr, which is a German infantry fighting vehicle. It's equipped with a 20mm autocannon, I believe it is. Oh, she's going away. Okay. 20mm autocannon. It could be a Polish variant of it. I'm not great on the martyr, but we'll see 2 back-to-back videos, and the first of which takes place right here. Let's take a look at that one. There we are. Are you guys calling for the cat? Is that what I see? She's real pushy, man. If she comes over here, and she lives down here now. So the reason we've always had this cat, but she lived upstairs. The problem is the other cats are like pissing all over the place, and we're having to clean that up every 10 minutes. So we moved that cat, my cat, Sugar Cookie, down here with me. Psst. What are you doing? All right, she's going. More martyr footage here. Same general location. But once again, banging with that 20mm autocannon. The martyr is just off screen down this way. All right, baby. Hi. Hi. Come on up. Say hello. We'll pause for a second and say thank you to everybody. Come on. Come on. What are you doing? I know. Let's see here. Assumed. No. Adasuno. Thank you very much for the 5. Hope NTC. I wasn't NTC. No, don't have to deal with that much anymore. Thanks very much for that $5, though. Thank you for the $2. Right after that, NATO's getting an insane amount of data from the special military operation. Yes. Yes, NATO is gaining a lot of information from this. Sin for Rent. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Appreciate that. Thanks very much. Let's see if it'll tell me who accepted those. Yeah, Ronnie McGuffin, Daniel Angel, Mark, Free Falling, and J Jov. Welcome to the Funkers. Michael, thank you for the $20. Haven't seen you stream in a few weeks. Thought you were ghosting me, bro. Nope. Was just away for a couple weeks, brother. Tachanka, thanks again for the 772. All right, let's keep moving through the footage. All right, now we're shifting into on or around the 19th of August. This is just one, and I'm using this as an example of something that's reflective of the really the war in its entirety. One of the things that comes along with war is going to be captured vehicles, captured personnel, lost vehicles, destroyed vehicles, casualties. This is just going to be one of those. There have also been Humvees captured and destroyed by Russia. There have been martyrs captured. Don't quote me on that one. I know destroyed. What we're going to see here is footage of a Russian T-90M being towed away from the front to, I would say, relative safety. We're going to turn the sound on for this one, and hopefully we're able to play it. Nope, it's got music on it. But we're riding on the front of a tank of some kind. And as we turn around, we'll see the T-90. Now, there were quite a few that pointed out that this looked to be a T-72 variant. Well, to be honest with you, the T-90 isn't anything but a T-72 with some upgraded stuff on it. And more specifically, what was quoted by those who know a little bit more about armor than I do is actually the mantlet armor here is indicative of this being a T-90M being towed away from the front. Where'd the cat go? Psst, 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 psst. What are you doing? All right, let's move on. Now we're going to get into talking a little bit about bridges, showing you some of the footage from these bridges that are being destroyed. I'm going to start in the far west, I think. All the way out, this bridge specifically. Now, I don't have footage of this bridge being destroyed, and I don't think that this one is technically destroyed, but you will find that this image that I have shows quite a bit of structural damage. And this, by the way, this is somebody that I follow and cannot recommend enough, MT_Anderson. Just an extreme wealth of knowledge. Cannot recommend following him on Twitter enough. Please do go and do that. He puts together products like this. This is that bridge, and you can see that damage to the bridge here. Now, one can make an argument that maybe foot traffic can still continue to go across this, but if you start loading this up with, any heavy tracked vehicles, that starts to get a little risky. Who knows? I'm not a structural engineer. I'm not an architect. But it's not supposed to look like that, at a minimum. But let's take a look at some bridges that actually were destroyed. The second bridge. So we started here. And we'll go here. And here's the footage. Once again, some low-resolution footage. I chose this one largely because of the gravity of the destruction of bridges. We've talked about bridges kind of over and over here. Russia liked to target bridges, during their offensive in Kharkiv. I showed you, tons and tons of footage of that. And here you see Ukraine doing the very same. That's not supposed to look like that. That's a hole in the bridge, right? Okay. So that's two bridges. Now we're going to see the third here. Right there. So I told you earlier when we were watching some airstrikes take place down here that we were going to see some footage of this bridge being destroyed. That's coming up for you now. Now, this bridge was hit a couple times. You can actually see the holes in the bridge here. I would make a note of something, and that is the relative accuracy of what has hit this. That's stupid good. Probably going to be a GMLRS Unity. So would that be the M30, I believe? Because M30A1... No, that would be the M31 for the unitary warhead from HIMARS or M270. The M30A1, which we'll see here in a moment, is the alternative warhead. That is the 180,000 tungsten BBs, like a super deadly shotgun from the gods that comes down. The unitary warhead is what you would consider to be a little bit more traditional, wherein it's, explosive payload comes straight down. But that is extreme accuracy. Oop, here you go. There it is. And it's gone. What was once is no more. The holes don't really matter anymore, though. You see, there's always a silver lining. Yeah. That bridge is gone. I want to read Isaac's comment out loud. Now, I'm no bridge engineer or anything, but that sumbitch don't look passable to me. If you could swim, if you really wanted to. All right. Oh, one more time. Ugh. Does anybody know what munition was used for that? That looks like a GBU. It looks like maybe I don't know. Still pretty accurate. But that's a big boom to be GMLRS. Some kind of air delivered, maybe JDAM-ER. I don't know. All right, let's bring it up. Now, when you do this, right, what Russia's going to do is they're going to try and use other means to, maneuver, specifically pontoon bridges. Well, here's the thing. Those are being hit too. The very first takes place here. The second, which is going to be in the same video, takes place here. So at these two locations, there were pontoon bridges. There's a key word that I used there. First, footage. Now these are going to be unitary warheads as well. These initial strikes. This one is a swing and a miss. Those two are not. This is going to be M30A1. So those tungsten, the shotgun from the gods, and it's 2 rounds of it. The first, oh my God, you guys aren't even looking at the, here. Say something next time. There's the unitary. Unitary, and then the Lord's shotgun. 1, 2, and they're right on top of each other. It's almost like you traced the first with the second. If I have a biggest bias, it's going to be for Western precision equipment, like the HIMARS, like the M270, because that is stupid. What's the CEP of, we've probably talked about this before, and I've probably told you what it was before when I researched it, but what is the CEP of GMLRS? A nose hair? Because that was close. Each of those landing in exactly the same spot. All right. Now, even still, kind of an insult to injury kind of thing. In those very same locations. Resale value on that went up. Now with sunroof. Okay. All right. So earlier I gave you a location to remember. Okay. In Malaya. Look, no, that wasn't it. I have the location for you again, so it doesn't matter. The series of videos that we're going to watch here, we're going to watch two. One is going to be a thermal depiction of a fight between three vehicles, very close fight. And then we're going to see a video that was released sometime after that that shows that to us in full color. I don't know. I don't know what we're watching. I can make out a couple of the vehicles based on their symbols that they have and based on the symbols that we know that Ukraine went into Kursk with. I'm going to give you both of the perspectives, and I'm sure that there's been some level of deep dive analysis that's been done on this. You're more than welcome to mention that in the chat. But I have seen the justifiable perspectives from, all angles here. Here is the first bit of footage. Now, this was originally released by Russia. So the original release was from Russia, effectively stating that you had a Russian vehicle essentially absolutely wrecking a Ukrainian vehicle. I want to say it's two BMPs. So one vehicle here, another one here. This is going to get real weird here in a second. Going to get real weird. Word of the day is chaos. Sometime later, probably, I don't know, within 24 hours or so. First, let me show you the location. We'll take you back to that location I told you to remember. All the way out here. So what you were just seeing is the vehicle that was firing sitting about here. Okay. The vehicle that was being fired on is about here, and it came barreling down this road. What you didn't see is a very clearly marked Ukrainian vehicle that just prior to that engagement comes barreling down this road. Okay. Once that engagement starts, that vehicle says F no and backs itself down here, firing at one of these two vehicles. Which one? I'm not certain. All right. Now, taking a look at this from kind of a geography perspective, if that vehicle came bebopping down this road, there's at least some likelihood, the chances aren't zero, that it was a Russian vehicle. Okay? It came from the east. Comes down this road, and then it gets ate up. There's also, you're going to notice, the markings on the vehicle. They are not the Ukrainian markings. The problem is that the vehicle that's firing here, we can't make out any markings on it. Let's take a look at the footage. We'll pause it at different times, and we'll talk about something else, something that's weird with this one. I'm literally telling you that I have no idea what's going on here. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I don't have anything written down on this. I have literally the word chaos. I'll show you that real quick. Check this out. This is what I have written down for this video. Here. Chaos. That's what I have written down. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm trying to figure it out myself. Come on. All right, whatever. Here is the footage. It's about 4 minutes long. Ignore this. There we go. All right, so here is that vehicle behind those trees. I can't make out any distinguishing marks on it. You'll note that it is actively firing in the direction of this very clearly marked Ukrainian 113. Okay. So these little triangles here is what Ukraine went into Kursk with to clearly identify their vehicles. Here is where things get interesting. So, this is that vehicle that was floating down this road. It just took a single shot. I want to say it's a BMP at this Ukrainian Kozak here. It took a single shot at the Ukrainian Kozak. Suddenly, this vehicle just opens up on it. Note the Kozak kind of bebops on out of there, like, you know, don't want any part of this. So while this is happening, keep in mind the original release. The original release in the thermal footage showed that the vehicle firing right now was a, quote, Russian vehicle destroying a Ukrainian vehicle. Let's go back and watch it again. So, vehicles firing in the general direction of this 113, which is weird. On the way down this road, this vehicle fires at this Kozak. Then this vehicle fires at this vehicle. It's also important to note that this is the only vehicle between these two that's marked. And it's marked with what I understand is Russian markings, kind of the V shape. I don't know, man. Let's move on, though, through the remainder of this footage. So the remainder of this footage was also released by Russia. Discretion advised. You're going to see some of the footage that we watched earlier. You'll end up seeing destroyed Ukrainian vehicles here, some deceased Ukrainians. Is this the same area? Yes, this is all in that same town. Correct. See, there is that intersection we were just focused on a moment ago. Now, the other note that I found interesting is you're kind of looking at this generally out of order. I think. There were certain parts to this where things were on fire. And at certain times, there are vehicles that are, you know, still on fire later in the video, or houses that are not on fire and then on fire and then they're not on fire again. The order of this is weird. And I didn't spend a lot of time just breaking it down individually. I figured we'd just kind of talk through it together. Just reading through the chat here. Ukrainian vehicle there. Note the triangle. And another on the right. Triangle on hood of vehicle that got lit up. Negative. It's like a V. Not quite a triangle. Now, just to make sure we're closing all the loops here, we'll watch this one more time. Okay. So this is what I believe is that Kozak that kind of burns up. To this position here. And then this is the kind of questionable vehicle that's firing at the 113. There's a round that I think pings off the top of it here, and then there's another round that's going to impact this light pole, maybe. So it's definitely firing this direction. When this vehicle enters from the east, this direction up here is east, so towards Russian lines. It fires at the Kozak. This vehicle reorients. You can see the V on it there. Reorients and just absolutely wrecks this vehicle. If I had to guess, and this is based off of absolutely zero expertise, this is some level of, that was some level of red on red. If I had to guess, I think, you know, like I mentioned, I'm sure that there are folks out there that have broken this down a little bit further. Ultimately, you know, recommend going and finding that, right? There's probably a point that I'll do the same. But as I was combing through the footage for us to look at tonight, I try to have as much context for you as I can. This one just confused the absolute hell out of me. I have a general Kursk section here where I don't necessarily have great locations in Kursk of where this stuff took place, but it is still activity that did take place in Kursk. Let me log in to the website because some of these are going to be fresh from the website. These are French AASM hammers dropping onto Russian positions. Fired at reversing vehicle 2? I don't think so, actually. I think that the rounds that were impacting near the reversing vehicle, which is why it's even more confusing to me, I think that those are pass-throughs. You know, essentially, while it was banging on that vehicle close, either, you know, recoil or something was causing a few rounds to go over or around, I shouldn't say around because it's not really how it works, Angelina Jolie, but over that other vehicle, impacting close to that reversing vehicle. There's an argument that can be made that it is that the second vehicle, the firing vehicle, was Ukrainian even. You know, wherein effectively the Kozak that pulled up saw the engagement start to happen and said, F this, I'm going to back out of this because it's about to turn into a little bit of a firefight here and I'm a little under-equipped. I still believe that it is a Russian vehicle firing on a Russian vehicle because, I don't know, maybe somebody came over the radio and said, hey, Traverse, there is a Ukrainian vehicle pulling up on you. He turned it and just started banging on the closest thing he saw. I don't know. Again, no idea. Let's move on. We've got a Ukrainian tank here being hit with a Lancet. Let's say this was like a T-64. I don't know. Here you are. All Russian flare show. This is propaganda footage. Hey, gentle reminder that all combat footage is propaganda. It is. Any combat footage that you release ultimately has a desired effect, right? Doesn't matter if you're hunting around on DVids, which is where the Department of Defense releases its combat footage or its combat cameraman work or even PAO work. It doesn't matter if you're watching that or you're watching Israel's or you're watching Hamas, Russia, Ukraine. It is all propaganda. What you derive from that, well, then we start to talk about your predispositions. We start to talk about, effectively where your, personal compass leads you. Okay, we can both have differing opinions on the same piece of factual footage. How we arrive to those differing opinions is going to be based entirely around our predispositions, right? But it is all propaganda. That is what it is. If you're not doing that, you are losing the information war. That's it, plain and simple. Let's move on. We have some helmet camera footage of Ukrainian SOF banging around in Kursk. Don't know exactly where this takes place, but we have audio for it. Headphone warning.
Отопившись з тої сторони.
Военнослужащие РФ, ваше командование вас бросило.
Ребята! Хорош. Пішли.
Выходите по одному, поднятыми руками. Военнослужащие РФ, дальнейшее сопротивление бесполезно. Давайте, выходите по одному, поднятыми руками.
Чекай. Давай.
Нахуй! Въебай ты нахуй! О. Ну, сука!
Давайте, блин, будете жить.
All right, coming back up. Discretion advised on this one as well. So this is going to be a Ukrainian ambush on a Russian vehicle somewhere in Kursk. Don't know exactly where it takes place. There are casualties in the vehicle, or excuse me, in the video. I don't think it shows any deceased, but casualty nonetheless. Here you are.
Адольф, він там, дальше УАЗика, метрів 100, зліва за траншеєю. Сука, сдавайся, выходи, пидор, блядь. Я не могу, я ранен. Это ты, сука, пиздишь.
Say again, discretion advised.
Що там, родной? Ранен? Який підрозділ? Підрозділ?
Не попан 2 укола в коло.
Скільки у вас людей було?
4. Трое убежали в лесополос.
Hold on, pause. This looks like a propaganda video. There's a man bleeding on the ground right there. What?
Какую?
Вот, ближайшее. Куда дальше побежали, не знаю. Могу
Оружие
радейку.
было при вас? Радейка есть?
Вот, есть.
Забирай радейку.
Могу включить, пароль ввести.
Давай пароль, Водь.
Только помогите, пожалуйста.
Поможем. Два підера з тієї сторони дороги! Де нива уїбала? Ще одна їде, вогонь! Єбаште! Давай сюди підповзай, буду валити всіх. Будете супротив? Сідай тут, сідай.
Быстро, бегом, блядь!
Машина їде з тієї сторони! Бранер, блядь! Так! Стоп, стрільба! Єсть, вилізли!
Оля, там еще один, вон, справа.
Офіцери є? Солдати?
All right, bringing it back up. So we're going to shift out of Kursk here, and we're going to move back to the Google Earth map with... Actually, I don't think I have any more geolocations, but we've got some footage from a few other areas. So this next one takes place reportedly near Vuhledar, I want to say it was. Difficult to say, but I know it's somewhere in Donetsk. This is reported to be Russians assaulting Ukrainian positions and apparently taking a Ukrainian captive.
Леший, двигайся!
By the way, don't quote me on Vuhledar. I know it takes place in the east, though. A grenade there.
Иди сюда! Пошли!
All right, coming back up. Down in Kherson, we've got some footage here. This is more Ukrainian air. Like I told you, there's a running theme here that I'm kind of trying to point out, and that is that the air is absolutely still contested. Both Ukrainians and Russians still absolutely dropping, under most circumstances, glide munitions. So relatively far from a standoff perspective, you know, not a lot being dropped straight down. So JDM-ER, the UMPK kits for the FAB munitions, stuff along those lines. But that's what you have here. This is a Russian position hit by a Ukrainian airstrike. Play. Thank you. All right, that's about the end of that one. Then I've got another one here that I don't have a great location for, but it is somewhere in Kherson, in the south. This is reported to be Ukrainian M270. Now, again, for those that aren't familiar with the M270 and the M142 HIMARS, these are what fire the ATACMS, what fire GMLRS. And from a single platform capability perspective, I would say that they provided Ukraine the most bang for the buck relative to really anything that's been provided. The next closest would probably be the Bradley, in my opinion. I think the Bradley has outperformed its expectations. Again, kind of showcasing my bias there, which is for American equipment. I serve in the American military, you know, suck it, whatever, I don't care. But the HIMARS and M270 are very, very capable platforms. These have a very small CEP, or circular error probable, for both GMLRS and ATACMS, extreme precision. This is reported to be an M270, at least one, being destroyed. Now, there was some video not too long ago that was reported to show an M270 being destroyed, but in actuality, what we were seeing was a veritable decoy. It was proven that that was a decoy. This one isn't as easy to prove. So what I'm essentially saying is this is reported to be an M270 somewhere in Kherson being destroyed. Here. The M270 is a tracked version, though. So it also has, or it also is able to carry twice the amount of munitions that the HIMARS is. Now, the HIMARS, from a mobility perspective, a little bit faster, can take those hardball roads a little bit quicker, kind of get on to its firing location and get out. Now, if you happen to notice, though, there was a second vehicle there with the exact same imagery signature as the one that was, you know, quote unquote, hit. Let's take a look at that. So you got two very similar vehicle signatures here for me. Right now, I'm not an IMINT guy. I'm not a squint. It's not really what I've ever done. But those look pretty close. Oh, you can't see it. Here you go. One of them is probably a logistics truck of some kind. They just look at least close enough. Yeah, and the more I look at it, the cab of this vehicle is a little bit smaller. This being a little bit more indicative of the M270's signature. It was close, though. That's what caught my eye. Coming back up. Some more footage from Ukraine here. This one's wild. Yeah, so we're going to be inside of an Mi-8, Ukrainian Mi-8, as its nose gunner, I think that's what you'd call that, shoots down a Russian drone. There it goes. Got it. I can almost smell this footage. All those gases. All right, coming up. I found this one to be just super interesting. Caltrops being used in 2024. Yeah. So first the Romans used it. I think it probably was used well before that, but just giving you a frame of reference here, caltrops have been used in probably every war that has ever been, probably since there were sharp sticks. You know, once you were able to sharpen sticks, they probably set traps with those, which, who knows? Anyway, this drone dropped caltrops. Now, we're going to see a Ukrainian vehicle end up driving over those caltrops, and then it kind of blows out its tires. And I want to say it skids to a halt down this road here, and then Russia hits it with a couple FPV drones. And that's the end of that vehicle. But does it beat pocket sand? Nothing beats pocket sand. All right. I got one more video from Ukraine, and then we're going to be shifting into our Around the World segment, which is going to be interesting tonight. I don't know. The best I've got for this is really what happens when you lie on the job, but still get the when you lie on the resume, but still get the job. Here you go. So it's a Russian, presumably trying to disarm this anti-tank mine. I don't know. And then he just kind of hucks it generally that way. And the VA has determined that your hearing loss is not service connected. I will note that he was successful in defusing that landmine. Let's move into actually let's pause for a second and check in on some of the support. And thank you guys for it. Doggy, thank you for the 556. Happy Valentine's Day. What? Thank you for the 556. Ronnie, you have lovely eyes. Moving on. Nathan, thank you very much for the 556. Why aren't chemical weapons being used like they were in World War I? Is that a serious question? Adesunu, thank you for the $2. Again, NATO is gaining an insane amount of data from the special military operation. Yeah, well, all sides are going to, right? Russia gained an insane amount of data. That's why we see such a rapid change in Russian strategy, right? They had 3 different fronts open, and they couldn't man them all at once. Then focused on sub-goals to the overarching goal with the invasion. We saw logistics failures early on in the Ukraine war for Russia. They've kind of adapted to that. How many generals did we see getting killed in frontline battles because effectively their NCO corps wasn't up to the task? So we see, Russia learning from this as well. Right. There is, if you're not learning from any war that you're a part of, you're setting yourself up for failure. And thank you for that $2. And then John, thank you very much for joining us. What's going on? All right, let's move into the Around the World segment. So we're going to start in Sudan. We're going to start in Sudan here. This was almost going to be the last video for the night. Didn't quite make the cut as the last video, but this is one way to machine gun. All right, let's bring it back up. I got another one from Sudan for you, though. There's this running joke that the cameraman always survives. There's some level of likelihood that is just not the case on this video, so discretion's advised here. But what you're going to see is a vehicle targeted by an anti-tank guided guided missile, ATGM. And here you go. Ooh. Pretty sure that's a BMP-1, by the way. Where is this? Sudan. We haven't left Sudan yet. Any F4 Phantom fans? we're going to head to Turkey. Well, we're going to start in Turkey, and then we're going to end up in Iraq, where Turkish F-4 Phantom IIs conducted strikes on the PKK, or the Kurdistan Workers' Party. Here's the footage. Somebody said Vietnam style. All right, let's move on from that one. Now we're going to head into Myanmar, or Burma, Myanmar, where we have anti-junta forces. So I think that would be the PDF, the People's Defense Forces, essentially just kind of waiting to see if they get hit with this airstrike.
Theo này phía em xuống rồi. Xuống rồi. Dạ. Xem gì đây à? Thấy không? Không mà đi.
Something that stuck out to me on this one, though. So we see some footage. Just going to pause this here. It's actually a great point to pause it. So we see a lot of footage from Myanmar, from the anti-junta forces, the PDF, the People's Defense Forces, that from an equipment perspective looks really different than what we're seeing here. I mean, we're seeing some pretty kitted out Myanmar soldiers, PDF troops. Pretty sure that's like a Team Wendy, maybe an Ops Corps. I'm not a helmet expert, but they've actually got some kit in this one, and I found that to be an interesting takeaway. I'm not saying that that's indicative of anything broader or larger. I just found it to be the exception to what we normally see of their footage. This being one of those videos, though. Check this out. This is the little outboard motor that couldn't. It is a maritime assault of anti-junta forces. Here you are. Bro, that motor is screaming right now. I like the energy. Now, if I understand correctly, which I might not, I don't know. I think that they are assaulting junta positions in this tree line here, maybe, or they're trying to get there and just, you know, they've got like your great uncle's bass boat right now with a, 1960s outboard motor. And these are not going to be bulletproof either. Oh, oh. Homeboy is sending those into another zip code, by the way. All right. Now we're going to be moving into the footage that I have from Israel and Gaza. And we'll start with technically from out in the Red Sea. I will pause for a moment just to check on the support. I think we're all caught up on that. Yeah, so we'll jump right into the footage here. So the Houthis are still at it. The Houthis targeted a Greek-owned ship. Specifically, it was carrying 150,000 either tons or gallons, lots and lots of crude oil. It's a Greek-owned, though, and it was on its way from Iraq to Greece. Houthis targeted it, and they were successful in that targeting. Who? The Houthis. Okay, guys. Okay, we get the statement there. Boom. So for those that are, oh, I'd like to note something here. I'd like to just take a look at this here. Right. Now, I don't recall exactly what each of these says, but it's important to note that that says something akin to death to Israel, death to America, you know, something or other. What I find interesting is that from a collective perspective as Americans, this is such a clear adversary. But generally speaking, there are so many people that are still, very standoffish about American action in defense of civilians related to Houthi action. America has more naval power in the Red Sea right now. I'm not really sure the circumstances with this one or what targeted it. This was actually a very last-minute addition to the stream, so I didn't get a chance to dive too far into it. But America has more naval power in the Red Sea than most navies in the world right now, and could theoretically, if freed up to do so, just absolutely wipe Yemen off of the face of the earth with what we have sitting there right now. Now, one of the reasons that there's so much naval power there is the expectation of retaliation from Iran that still hasn't come. That was something that was expected to be really, really quick, and for a little while, especially given the senior members of Hezbollah that were targeted, striking all the way into Tehran in Iran. Iran's kind of biding their time here, and the U.S. is continuing to move combat power into the area, effectively to help Israel defend from whatever it is that's going to be coming sometime, presumably later. In the north, speaking of Hezbollah, though, we have an interesting bit of footage. We have an AH-64, an Apache, shooting down a Hezbollah drone. I didn't even know this was possible. I didn't know this was a thing. Where'd it go? I think it's so far out that you can barely see it. Let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Did it show it better from the other direction? No. All right, let's bring it back up. A weapons depot in Baalbek, Lebanon. I don't have an exact location for this one. And as far as the Apache, when I looked at that on my bigger screen, I'm able to make it out. I just can't quite see it here. I'm not sure if you guys are able to see it, but it does impact the drone. In Baalbek, Lebanon. So we're still in the north right now. So this would take place here. Generally. So this was the area. This is Baalbek. And it said it was, effectively in this area somewhere. But a Hezbollah weapons depot was destroyed. I'll show you some of the footage from that. Some pretty spectacular secondary explosions taking place here. He's got 2 things of Pringles here. Man's just kicked back watching this massive set of explosions with a couple cans of Pringles. Now I can get you a little bit closer with this next video to that strike. Here. All right. And then this bit of footage. The note that I had for this one is Israel isn't able to... yeah, I understand. So what you're going to see here is the result of some of these Hezbollah rocket strikes. Now, under a lot of circumstances, what we see is the Iron Dome just absolutely, swatting these out of the air. But Israel isn't able to catch all of them. The Iron Dome can absolutely be overwhelmed, and subject to where it's deployed, it might not be protecting certain areas. So when we see, a rocket land, for example, that might not be an area that's covered by the Iron Dome or even a Patriot or Arrow. But this is the aftermath of a Hezbollah rocket strike in Katzrin. Katzrin? I have a geolocation here. But I think there's a propensity to believe that the Iron Dome is just kind of handling it at all times. No, these are still absolutely falling. Let's go to the map so we can see where this one took place. And landed here. Katzrin. Katzrin. Okay. Now we're moving into Gaza. Okay. So this is going to be one of those contextual bits of footage that I have for you. Just helps you see, and I have two specific points on the map that I'm going to show you, but a UN convoy moving through Gaza. This is what Gaza looks like right now. That's about it for that one. Now let me take you to the map, show you where exactly in Gaza that was. I have a start point and I have an end point. So this is going to be your start point here. Right there. And then your end point. Hold on. Copy pasta issues. There we go. It's going to be here. So just really along this road. This area here is what we're really seeing. So just to the south by southwest of Gaza City. All right. Got some airstrikes here. This is on the Nazareth Tower. I think this is in Nuseirat. It's going to take place here. 2 back-to-back either spike missiles or JDAMs. Difficult to know which. Impacting this tower. Now, here's an honest question. I'm going to show you a different tower that also has a camera set up perfectly like this. Who's setting the camera up on these towers? Does Israel have operatives on the ground to record this stuff when it's taking place, or do they just know that the tower is going to get hit? I'm not trying to like infer or imply that there's something weird going on. I'm just honestly I'm quite honestly asking. Now, if Israel's still doing the roof knocking, this is where it would make a little bit more sense. So what Israel used to do is they used to do what's called roof knocking, where they would hit it with a small munition, wait about 5 minutes. The small munition would barely do anything to it. Everybody would know, hey, it's time for us to vacate this premises, and then Israel would flatten it. If they're still doing that, it makes sense for these to be filmed. There was a situation or an instance earlier in their invasion of Gaza that they acknowledged that they were not doing that. So now I wonder, again, I'm going to show you another one of these in a moment. Who's setting the camera up for it? I asked that question honestly. Let's move on to I'll just finish playing through this. I was just reading through the chat there to see if anybody had a good take on what's going on with that. But again, so I told you that there was another tower hit. So this is the Al-Zakut Tower. Al-Zakut Tower. Also in Nuseirat here. See if we can get this. It didn't show me the building's height or anything cool like that. Reset to north. Well, we were just up this general way. We didn't move very far. Here is the next one. Same situation, though. Camera there. Just looking right at the tower. I quite honestly think that does have something to do with maybe they have started conducting roof knocks again. I'm just not certain. As the smoke clears there. So look at the building right now. Commit it to memory. Little off the top. All right. Discretion heavily advised on this next one here. we have more Hamas sniper footage. The type of situation that Israel finds themselves in is essentially a breeding ground for sniper type ambushes, small, single to couple round engagements, and then the engagement is effectively over. What Israel is essentially dealing with is what, we in the American military and the coalition military dealt with in the global war on terror. It is, small pockets of resistance that are able to blend in with the local population, ultimately lending to the intersection of civilians and the unfortunate civilian casualties that would come along with that. But what you also get is, again, these small groups of militants with the ability to engage at 200, 300, 400 meters with a very, very dense urban area like Gaza. We've seen a lot of sniper footage. What you're going to see here is an Israeli soldier getting sniped by Hamas. Discretion advised. Got a range finder there. Camera. AM50. That's this platform. Again, a copy of the Steyr HS50, an Iranian copy. Now, if I understand correctly, there is this Israeli soldier is known. I wasn't able to record his name. I think some folks might be typing it in the chat there. But it has been verified by the IDF that this Israeli soldier was killed by that round. Let's move on. Moving into the West Bank here. And we're coming up on the tail end of tonight's stream. We have armed Palestinians. Don't know whether they're PIJ, Hamas, Al-Qassam brigades, Martyrs brigades. Don't know who they are. They're armed. They're all stacked up on this motorcycle, and the motorcycle's about to get hit with a precision strike. Discretion advised, war happens in this. All right. Bringing it back up. In Nablus, I actually have a geolocation for this one. This takes place here. Right there. As this isn't the last video that we're going to watch tonight. I wanted to give you a little bit of anxiety. Okay? You're welcome. If I had to watch it, you do too. Here you are. Ugh. So this is an IDF convoy kind of moving into all this traffic here. A little bit of love tap. Rubbin's racing. Bit of a love tap there. Let him know you're there. Let's turn that back down though. And that, I want to say, is going to round out all of the primary footage that I have for you guys tonight, because we covered all of that already. I always have one more video for you. I do, before I close out the stream, want to remind you to go check out RMA Armament, our sponsor for tonight's show, and thanks very much to RMA Armament. Whether you're looking for level 4, level 3, they've got UHM WPE armor that is naturally buoyant. So if you're doing a lot of stuff around boats and you think that you're going to need some armor protection for your new plate carrier that you just bought, check out their level 3 UHM WPE. If you need something with a little bit more capability, the 1156, the model 1156, I want to say that was. Checking here. Yeah, model 1165, I'm dyslexic and an idiot, is level 4 armor, meaning it can stop armor-piercing ammunition up to 30-06, multiple hits of it, in fact. If you're looking to pick up some armor for the missus or for the family, they also have ladies' curved armor, which is just more of an exacerbated curve. And a lot of it's in a price range that, you know, is actually very reasonable. So if armor for your plate carrier is something that you're into, go check out RMA Armament. You can find some links down in the stream description and in the pinned comment above. That's it for me. Above the chat, sorry. That's it for me. Welcome back to the Combat Footage Show. We're going to be going from here over to the other stream. It'll automatically redirect you over there. I got one more video for you. Thanks very much for being here. For this last video, all I can really say is I'd like to have what he's having. I'll just put it that way. I think it takes place somewhere in Crimea. That would make the most sense to me. Good night. Go be great. And stay informed.
Скажите, что это такое? Значит, название, по-моему, турецкое. Мембрана стоит целая. Тяжелая, целая.
Jesus, I've seen what you do for others, and I want that for me.
Не наша.
All right, good night. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next week.